We'll call the special council meeting to order, City of Marshfield, Monday, October 27th. Call to order, roll call. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, public comment period, correspondence. At this time, I will recognize members in attendance wishing to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note the council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Jenna Hansen. Oh, you want to turn your microphone on?
And pull it down.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You want me to restart?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay. Good evening, council members. My name is Jenna Hansen, 8771 County Road B, Marshfield. I know you have a lot of decisions to make with budgets, and I appreciate all of your time and effort that you give to our city. As a Main Street Marshfield board member, I'm here to request support for the revitalization grants for our downtown area. I know that was a topic in previous meetings. Really, this request is not really a handout. It's just a critical investment in the future of our downtown. When we look at downtown revitalization, these grants are really necessary because they really do reignite our local economy. They attract private money. They increase our tax revenue. They create jobs. They create better communities. So thriving downtown really makes our city more appealing. They improve safety and aesthetics. They boost local pride. And so the bottom line is that many of our small businesses and downtown businesses and property owners simply can't afford the necessary costly repairs and upgrades on their own. And these grants bridge that financial gap, and that ensures our downtown doesn't decline, but instead becomes energetic and a prosperous center that our community deserves. It was discussed at the town hall last week, and it's certainly what we have found in working on matching fund grants with businesses and property owners. When one business has improvement and shows improvement, there's a lot of discussion by their neighbors, and they look at how they can improve their space. And that happened with our last round of grants that we've had, and this has happened time and time again, where one person on a block will start a project and others will see it and they will try to find out how they can get involved. There is no economic development director. We have Main Street Visit Marshfield and Mackey, and so if funding is cut for some of these projects, it's directly cutting the funds needed to increase our economic development. So any amount of funding helps because it's created with matching funds. I know the county had given some seed money, wanted to see the city back that funding as a collaboration. So when we think about $8,000, that becomes $16,000, which becomes $32,000 when you put in matching funds. And that has a huge impact and a high return on investment. I know there's excitement about the 2nd Street Corridor project. It's a new project. We'd love to see some collaboration, but moving money multiple years in a row and taking that, out of downtown, really, we want to see that in addition to, not in place of. If we think about projects that have received this funding in the past, we're looking at Off the Mat Yoga. If you look outside the window, when we look at Glamour and Company, that was a huge project, and it looks amazing now compared to what it was before. Frederick Construction added windows above on their 2nd floor to make it back into that historic building that it once was. And we've heard of at least 3 businesses this year looking for funding to help make those needed changes in revitalization. So we've heard a bunch of them. And when we talked to someone just this past weekend during the beer walk, it's a restaurant downtown that we would love to see. It's been on our radar for many years, and we would love to see that. We can bring in someone to help with facade renderings, but we don't have the funding to help them make that a possibility. And so we would really like to continue those projects and continue to see that development downtown. So just urging the council to reconsider funding for this essential program and hopefully can continue to consider what that means and just the investment in our downtown and seeing that return in our property taxes and other things. So Just hoping that you'll reconsider that and wanted to bring this forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Any other citizen comments? Seeing no other citizen comments, we'll go on to item D, approval of minutes, October 20th, 2025, budget meeting. Yep. We have a motion by Alderman, we have a motion by Alderman Weigel, second by Alderman Tompkins. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote. That motion passes. Thank you. Item E, continue review and consideration of recommended 2026 budget. Rebecca Spears, Chairman of the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee, presiding.
Good evening. We will continue on with the agenda. I believe we're at letter F, staff update, new information regarding additional revenue for the 2026 budget. And that's you, Steve, I bet.
It will be, yes. Well, you know, oftentimes things come up at the last minute in budget and you talk about, oh my gosh, we're $100,000 short, we got bad news or whatever. This is one of those good meetings we actually have to talk about because we have learned from the Department of Revenue that we'll get $355,000 more. That's related to a memo you got in your packet from Jennifer Selensky, our finance director, a chargeback that we had made a request for based upon the clinic settlement we had, but we really don't know for sure until we get formal notification whether DNR will accept it. It was kind of a different kind of agreement that we made than would be the norm. But she has found out as of October 21st that the DOR has approved that. We wanted to be conservative in preparing the budget, so we weren't counting on that revenue, but it sounds like that revenue will be coming our way. So that means there's a $355,000 revenue that is added in addition to the balanced budget that you walked away with on October 20th at the last meeting. So that's what we'll be talking about in this discussion.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, and I apologize. I made you make a correction. I said minutes from October 14th meeting, and it's actually minutes from the October 20th meeting, from the budget meeting. So I apologize.
Thank you. All right, any questions from the committee, council? Seeing none. G, review alternatives for allocation of the additional revenue with the 2026 budget. Steve, is that you again?
It is, and I'm just going to be largely playing off the memo that you got from Jennifer that was in the packet, just kind of highlighting the alternatives. And again, these can be a mix and match. It's not like you have to pick one or number 3 or number 4 or number 2 or whatever. But here's the basic things you can look at doing with that $355,000 that you've been told about now. One is to add some or all of it to the contingency account. Right now, the city's contingency is, I believe, about $65,000, which is not a lot for a $27 million roughly general fund budget. It's actually about 0.025%, a quarter of a percent. So that would be an idea to add. You know, we have these budget resolutions and we can blow through $65,000 pretty quickly in a year. So you may wish to consider adding some or all of that amount to the 2026 budget, contingency, I should say. Second one would be to reduce or remove the use of unassigned fund balance. I think Jennifer did a good job of walking through that at the last meeting, that there are about $335,000 of unassigned fund balance from the general fund that have been put toward projects, if you will, in the 2026 budget. The lion's share of them are CIP items. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the CIP. We never got formal approval from this body of the CIP that was recommended for approval back on July 31st. But you could take some of those monies and say, look, rather than to borrow for these, we could use these monies to cover one or many of those CIP projects. The next one would be to restore any budget items that have been previously reduced or deferred. You got the list from Jordan of the cuts that were made along the way leading up to the submission of the recommended budget back on October 2nd. You also made a couple of cuts during the meeting recently and being referenced in part by Jenna Hansen of Main Street. One of them is the removal of $25,000 for the city's participation in the used to be called facade grant program, now it's called the building revitalization program. We were going to partner with $8,000 that were allocated to us by the Wood County Seed Committee to do $33,000 worth of work. You could look at restoring that money back into the budget. Also, $10,000 was cut on the Main Street budget at that time. So you could look at any of those kind of cuts that have been made along the way prior to submission of the budget or during the budget process for some of these $355,000. And the final one would be to what Jennifer referred to as address organizational capacity, i.e. staffing. You've seen the report that not only do we not have a community development director, but there's other positions not being identified for filling vacancies. You had that in previous reports. We have several vacancies out there, some of which are not being proposed to be filled in 2026. A couple of others expected to be, proposed to be refilled during 2026, specifically during the spring of the year. So those could potentially be modified the start dates as well. That's a possibility. So again, it's a mix and match as you look at the $355,000, what you want to do with that. I would note one last thing. On the second page of Jennifer's memo, she refers to a few things that are left pending. There always are. I know we're sitting here on October 28th, and you might think, how can there be anything still left to be determined? We still need to nail down the pilot change for sure. The exact dollar amount, we're using an estimate right now of $50,000. That will determine the final 2026 city tax rate. We don't have today. Kind of backing into that, if you will. TID increment revenues, CIP and debt proceeds, interest expense from the Clean Water Fund loan draws are still occurring. And then finally, we may have to adjust the contingency at the end of the day. And you know, we have the two-part contingency, the one we talk about that we would say is available for spending. We also have that other amount that we add to continue to keep the capacity to comply with and meet the requirements for expenditure restraint in the future. So we always get that $400,000 to $500,000 in the following year. We may need to tweak that at the end if there's numbers that suggest that we maybe don't qualify with the maximum that state law says for being eligible for future ERIP payments. So with that in mind, I would take any questions before we go farther.
Thank you, Steve. Ms. Tompkins.
I've got two questions, thank you. The first is down at the bottom, the interest expense clean water fund loan as draws are still occurring. What does that?
So if you'll recall, in our wastewater utility, we are currently building a new treatment plant, and part of the proceeds for that come from a clean water fund loan. How that program works is as we incur construction expenditures, we submit those to the state of Wisconsin under our clean water fund loan, and then they reimburse us. So that project is still going. We haven't drawn out our full loan capacity. So each time we draw, it shuffles how the future principal and interest payments look. So depending on where we are at the end of the year, the amount that's currently in the budget will likely need to be increased because of additional draws.
Okay, and I have another question. You might as well stay up there. So we used $300,000 from unassigned fund balance for our CIP items. Is that right?
Correct.
So this proposal would say, basically take, I don't know, leave that there, but then reimburse the unassigned fund
Correct.
balance. Is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Coran.
I have a question for Steve. Did we turn down the grant money that we were allocated from Wood County?
I did notify them after your last decision. I don't know if they've done anything with that notification yet. I suspect we might be able to re-notify them and say, look, we really have decided to go with funding if that's what this body wants. I did it because of the thought, again, that in good faith, if they wanted to look at November, and that's when the county board makes the final decision on this at their the third Tuesday in November, that they could give it to someone else. But I suspect if I were to contact them, you know, tomorrow, for example, it's only been six days or something, they may well not have made other allocations. But yes, I did give them initial nod that we probably would not be accepting that because we were not going to go forward with our own allocation.
Thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Varsho, you have a motion?
I would make a motion to allocate the full amount to the contingency account.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Varsho and a second for Ms. Dellis. You agree to that motion? Ms. Tompkins?
Okay, so if we put everything into the contingency account, would there be a way for instance, if we decided that we needed to hire another ordinance officer, we wanted to hire the economic development person, what would, I guess this is a question for Steve, what would be the procedure with the money in that account?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in doing this. I'm not trying to tell the body what to do, but it would be a budget resolution later to transfer the money to cover the wages and benefits of any of those positions you're referring to. And you know, just if I can lobby for that idea a little bit, as long as I'm talking, that would keep all your options open with respect to the positions and other things. It would not preclude you from when you decide you want to hire with a particular job description of a job or whatever you decide to move ahead with that by making that transfer. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, but we're not through the questions yet. Mr. Cran?
I'm allowed to put in an amendment at this time? Is that correct?
Now's the appropriate time to do an amendment if that's
Okay.
on this motion.
I'd like to put amendment in that we establish the $8,000 in grant money on the condition that Wood County will still match that for the Main Street program. For the last year, I was a very sharp critic of the Marshfield Main Street program. I attended their town hall meeting last week, which was also, we had many members of the community present visit Marshfield, the chamber, the mayor, many downtown property owners, that this would be a very good program, and the $8,000 that it costs the city will bring $32,000 back to us. I can respect that, and I think it would show good faith to the Main Street program to do this. So that would be my amendment.
All right, we have an amendment to the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fire is the second, okay.
Correct.
Discussion on the amendment? No? Full vote, please, on the amendment. That passes 5-3. All right, we're back to the motion, so that would mean rather than the 355,000, we would be doing 347? Did I do my
So what
math
you're
right?
saying? Does that fit with what you're saying, Scott?
What was that?
I mean, you're saying 8,000 from us, 8,000 from the county. That's what you're looking to create, yeah.
So that would be 347
Yeah.
then, into contingency. Mr. Rigel?
Thank you. Do we have any long-term plans for the sustainability of the economic developer, the EDD? Like, if we were to fund that next year, in theory, are we going to be able to pay for a year 2 and year 3, or is it going to be like a 1-year position?
Well, you know, we don't have this immediately scoped out, and this is one of the reasons why I think Jennifer and I were recommending against the use of the general fund money, just because we're over 30% of the annual operating expenses, because you don't usually do that for one-time expenses. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's no guarantee that if we go that direction, it wouldn't make it more challenging for future budgets. By putting it in contingency, we haven't done that. We're just literally putting a bookmark down. But when that decision is made, I think we have to have plans in mind for how we're going to make that sustainable long-term.
Right. And that's the reason for the question, because I'm okay with putting a contingency, but if we were to give instruction as to, let's put a contingency, but then try to hire that position, I don't want to give that instruction if that's just a 1-year Band-Aid and then the following year we're in worse shape than we are now.
Yeah, that would theoretically be the challenge with any of our vacant positions that we're trying to fill ultimately. That one at least has the benefit of presumably helping us to raise tax base through what they're doing and generate new taxes, but there's no guarantee as to what future years' budgets are going to look like if we hire that person.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tompkins?
Thank you. Is this anticipated as a one-time repayment? Or is this something that potentially is going to happen every year?
You want me to? I mean, it's a 5-year agreement we have with the clinic. We'd like to think that this will be given the blessing by DOR, and this will be an annual allocation back to us for 5 years. We don't know that. We're being conservative. In fact, until a week ago, Jennifer wasn't even sure they were going to approve this one. So it's possible. It's possible that a concurrence will go through, and that this will continue to be money that we receive annually through 2029 or whatever the year is, 2028.
Thank
Okay.
you, Steve.
And then my second question is, okay, so we have staff positions that aren't filled, and if potentially we will have something for the next 5 years, even something like an economic development director, in 5 years of being hired, there's a lot that could get done.
Mm-hmm.
So who is going to determine which of these staff positions are going to be brought forward and sort of promoted to the point that we're doing a budget resolution to hire this position, fill the position?
That's definitely going to be, I think, a call that the council needs to make. I mean, I think you can make an argument that all the vacant positions are important. There's been considerable discussion in this room over the past 3 or 4 weeks about the need for a community or economic development director. So I'm assuming that one will probably rise pretty high on the list. But ultimately, I mean, anything you direct in terms of being a priority, you know that there's a handful of positions that are vacant as we sit here. That'll be the purview of the body.
Because I'm just wondering if we're hurting departments by not putting these positions in for the 2026 budget. Now, potentially, like, for instance, the ordinance officer, we know that there's going to be an opening.
Mm-hmm.
So why not put that in the budget if we have the money for an ordinance officer? You know, I mean, those are my questions. Like, why are we not doing it?
I mean, that's certainly something you can do if you feel so led to do that. I mean, it's an opportunity cost. I mean, if you were to put wages and benefits for a second ordinance officer, I don't know, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 80,000 or something. That would be 80,000 taken away from the contingency, and you'd be looking at 250 to either put in a contingency or do something else with. I mean, these truly are your calls. I think the reason for us recommending that you put it all in contingency is to do analysis of all this before you start putting money toward things. You know, we talked at the last meeting about the community development director. Now it's being called economic development director. Maybe we want to revise the job description. In fact, I think Derek brought that up, and staff has been looking at that at staff level, whether or not the position, the way it's laid out right now, is really what people are after. And do we want to modify it for the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish? So that one, I think it's worth allowing some more study before we would bring it forward and put money towards something. What are we putting money toward yet? Others have defined job descriptions, and if you see fit to fill one of them now, or to put it in the budget to fill one of them now, again, I'm not going to take away from what's your role.
Go ahead, make your amendment. I'd like to have other people speak, their minds before we take all these amendments. Go ahead.
All right, I would like to make an amendment to put back into the 2026 budget, the ordinance officer, because there is a vacancy now and potentially there's a future one.
Okay. Steve, do you want to talk about that, please?
Well, and Jody's going to go ahead, Jody. I mean, what the idea of a vacancy, currently, they have one FTE.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear.
They had 2 in 2023. So
Right.
Is there a vacancy right now in the same way that there's a vacancy for equipment operator 1? No. But if you look back to 2023, I think what Jody's going to say is that there may be a need to have another officer.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that there's not an open position now, there's an unfunded position now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that existed in 2023 that doesn't exist now, ever since they allowed that marriage, if you will, with the zoning administrator position.
Exactly. Just wording.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second to that motion? That motion fails for lack of second. Okay, so we're going back to the original motion, which is to transfer $347,000 into contingency, and the amendment tacked on for $8,000 that would go to Main Street Marshfield, depending if the Wood County is still able to match that. So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Cran.
I just had a point at the last budget and personnel meeting. We talked about refining that community development position, and we were waiting back to hear in, I think, a month. So it's in progress, but there's a lot to refine. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I've targeted that for the second meeting of November. And that's, our staff has had some preliminary conversations, but we'll definitely bring a report back to you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we have a motion and a second. Does everyone understand the motion?
Can I make one more comment?
Sure, you
yeah,
can.
yeah, just again, I don't think that Wood County is going to balk on this. Initially, we had put in $25,000 and requested a $25,000 match when we went to the seed committee. They chose not to fulfill the $25,000 match request. They decided to allocate us $8,000. I don't think if I go back to them and I say, well, we're going to put in $8,000, can you match $8,000, that they're going to balk at that. I think that their $8,000 is still going to be good. Even though we're not talking about 25 from us anymore. I just wanted to make that point known. And the other thing I'd like to say real briefly is just, I support that. I think what Jenna said makes a lot of sense because we've, as I said at the last meeting, for every dollar we put into that program, we've usually gotten $2, if not $3 of private investment. So it's not a bad investment.
Okay, but the understanding would be that you could go ahead and this budget would be approved if they didn't match you.
Correct.
We don't have to have another meeting.
No.
Okay,
No,
gotcha.
correct.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. That's how I understood it, so.
In other words, if they won't,
I wanted to be sure.
Yeah, no, and if they won't honor that, then the $8,000 allocation by you folks here would go away. You go back to a $355 contingency.
Correct. Okay.
Got it.
Everyone got that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, please vote. That motion passes. Okay, letter H, review, consider approval of 2026-2030 capital improvement plan forwarded for final consideration at a special council meeting on July 31st.
Still me.
It's the
Yeah,
Steve
it's the
show.
Steve Varg show, yeah. Just kind of touching on this, and we do apologize at staff level. Certainly most years we've adopted a capital improvement plan before October. And normally we would have maybe back in July or something, but been going through a lot of challenges, certainly trying to make the numbers work. We've got the police relocation program going on. And since the last meeting on July 31st, Jennifer spent a lot of time with Kayla Thorpe from Ellers, our financial advisor, looking at ideas, looking ahead, even beyond 2030 to 2035, and just doing some planning to make sure we're on the right track before we sign on to a 5-year plan. So what I want to go through with you is just a quick highlights of the things that have changed since the last time you saw it, back on July 31st, the second of our 2 work sessions. There aren't really that many, and it's on page 8 of the agenda packet, if you have it, page 8, and I'll just walk through them real quickly. The first one was the Project 415-3825, the 1634 runway extension and parallel taxiway lighting. This is something Councilmember Tompkins had brought up, asking us to look at other funding sources at one point to cover the city's share of this project, apart from the federal and state grants. Ultimately, the council, it was brought back up by Councilmember Coran on September 9th to get that back into the plan, and it's currently now back in the plan at $42,000 for long-term debt. Second item is Project 415-3831. That's the replacement of a fuel tank, monitor, and fuel. That's also from the airport, and $24,000. The issue there is that we had put it initially in the budget you saw, or the CIP you saw, as being the money coming from the 415 fund, which is an airport capital projects fund. Ultimately, it's been determined that that fund doesn't have the money that we thought it did. So what we're going to do is move that into long-term debt. And that's not a disturbing announcement, but they didn't have the balance that we had expected to use those funds from. The next item is Project 401-1837. This is the 5th Street, long waited for 5th Street reconstruction project from Chestnut to Oak. And you see that the 401-1837, We've assigned the dollar amount to 478,700. It's up a little bit, and that's because of what you approved recently, which is the real estate acquisition. We need to get easements and have a consultant help us to negotiate those. So it's been bumped up a little bit to 478,700. That includes some construction costs of the project as well, ahead of the 2027 construction. The next one is south of, it's with the Fairgrounds Commission, 420-5619. That's the project south of East 17th Avenue, 17th Street. It's a security and parking lot lighting. This is a project that we once had, if you recall, on the unfunded category. And it was brought up by the council that you really wanted to see this project funded as a significant, more timely improvement. So we put it back in from the unfunded category of the CIP to being funded with long-term debt for $60,000, with the understanding that we're going to pursue half of that funding from Wood County. And if they're amenable, as we hope that they will be, it'll end up being $30,000 of borrowing and then putting $30,000 in to make that improvement in 2026. The next one, getting down near the end here, is project 410-5717. This is just really a swap. It's not an increase, but if you're looking at that line item, you see 20,000 in red from 400 balance and 400 fund, I should say, and 198,000 from long-term debt. That is a shift because we are selling vehicles for $20,000 that we're going to apply to that. So ultimately, the debt, which was going to be 218 in borrowing, is now going to be 198,000 in borrowing, a little reduction there. And then the final one we're presenting is the stormwater work, the Brain Park Wet Detention Basin, 401-6741, bumped up from 790,000 to 885, and that just simply reflects increasing cost of the work that needs to be done based upon new estimates. Having said that, if you go to the end of the pages, we'll get the right page for you here in a minute. Page, I believe that should be maybe 14. I'm sorry, I'm looking at a series of sheets here, but it's the end of the section on long-term borrowing. Let me get that for you here. We've given you several sheets from the CIP based on breaking down whether it's by fund, by year, or by financing source. And I somehow mixed myself up for a moment. I apologize. Yeah, do you have it on? What page? 14? Okay, I'm sorry, it's on page 14. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. That shows the amount we're gonna borrow over the 5 years from 2026 to 2030 under this plan. The first year, 9.8 million, again, a high number. We normally average between 4.5 and 5 million, but that's because of the 5 million toward the police relocation, part 2 there. And then 2027 and 28 are a little higher. They're more than the 4.5. That's largely because of the relocation, or the, reconstruction projects we've talked about in the past, that we normally wouldn't have 4 major reconstruction projects in this period of time, these state projects, but we certainly don't want to turn down the funding for the state projects. We want to get this work done. We don't know when we'll get it again. If we were to say no, and of course we get 80% of the funding construction cost on those. So that bumps us up from 4.5 to a little under 5.5, and in 28, roughly the same, to 5.6. 29 is fine at 4.4 million. And the 6.2 million shown for 2030, that includes a very large reconstruction project for, I just had it a minute ago here, Palmetto. Is that correct? From Becker to Grant, that reconstruction at 2.1 million. But we are going to apply for 80-20 grant funding for that project. And that would mean that the grant would cover about $1.6 million. That would reduce that from 6.2 to about 4.6, which would be in line roughly with our 5-year borrowing targets for 2023. So really the problem years are a little bit over on 27 and 28 because of the multiple reconstructions in those years, and then back in 26 because of the police relocation. Otherwise, we feel pretty good about where we've ended up given all the challenges that we have in putting this plan together. It's been a work in progress all the way along. So I would take any questions you have about any projects, period, in the plan, or any of the changes that we're recommending tonight.
Are there any questions? Ms. Tompkins?
Hi, thank you. I just had a staff member reach out to me and apparently some other council members, just wondering if there are any new lawnmowers for the cemetery in the CIP plan. I guess that person has not received an answer for that.
I guess I'll take that one. That's part of the M&E funding for next year. So it wouldn't be necessarily the CIP, it would just be part of the machinery and equipment or the 701 fund. I think it's 701, is that right,
Yeah,
Josh?
yeah.
701 fund, yeah. So they'll decide what equipment will be replaced in 2026 next year.
And so there's two lawnmowers that apparently are not in that fund and that need to be replaced, like are 11 years old. Are those somehow budgeted for?
Well, once again, it'll be in a,
So all four of them would go into that?
well, all equipment for next year purchases will be determined next year. So not only the lawnmowers, but any quad axle, any grader, any lawnmower, anything, Kubotas, trucks, all of it will be decided next year. So what he's asking for, nobody actually knows because no one knows what equipment will be replaced until it gets closer.
Thank
That
you.
makes sense? So we're just not quite there yet.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other questions? Ms. Dallas, can you state your motion, please?
I'm gonna motion to approve CIP, right? The CIP as it's it,
With the
with the
changes.
changes, sorry, with the change.
Okay. Ms. Tompkins, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Please vote. That passes. Okay, where are we at?
Yeah, I is effectively unnecessary,
Yep.
that was handled back in G.
All right, we're gonna skip over I. J, a motion to accept the changes made since the October 20th meeting when the budget was approved for consideration at the public hearing and authorized publication of the revised budget in the official city newspaper before the November 25th public hearing.
And this is necessary because you really did back on the 20th, made a motion to send the previous one to public hearing. Now that we made changes, we really want you to take what you've done tonight and make a proactive motion saying, this is the one that you want sent to publication so that Jennifer can take care of that and we can be ready for November 25th.
Mr. Varsho, is that your motion?
Yes.
And we have a second by Mr. Coran. Is that all right with you? Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. That passes. I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Regal, second by Ms. Dallas. All those in favor? We're adjourned.